Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel and getting into the chat, letting me know how you guys are thinking and feeling. On today's show, we're going to be going through a couple of different headlines. I do want to talk about this Saliba news that, Real Madrid are like desperate for him, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk about, how soon do we think this could potentially happen? Could it happen as soon as this coming summer? Are you worried? We'll talk about that. Also, I wanted to talk about the Jacob Ramsey links. Arsenal are in a three-club fight for him potentially. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that, as well as Leroy Sané has been linked to Arsenal once again. So we're going to chat about all that kind of stuff. It's international break, y'all. So, we're just going to go through the headlines. Make sure you guys smash the likes. Also, I want to remind you guys that I'm doing a live Q&A on Big Up, formerly TIFO, immediately following the stream. The stream is going to be about an hour. So at 7 p.m. UK time, we're going to head right on over to Big Up to do a live Q&A. I'd love for you guys to join me there. That's where we could just like kick back, relax, and you guys can ask me any questions from what's going on currently with Arsenal, past, future, whatever. And so we haven't done a Q&A in a while, and I thought I'd do it over there because it's just like a more close-knit, smaller community. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, the link is pinned to the chat, and I'll also put it in the chat a couple more times throughout the stream so that you guys know where to go. Let's see who is all in here. Hold on. Jordan says Saliba ain't going anywhere. Boy says Saliba will only move on a Bosman for 150 million. Junior says, hey Jess, hey Gooners, hello to you as well. Samuel says, yo. Junior says, hello Jess and fellow inmates. Junior says 150 million plus Vinny, Bellingham, Camavingas, etc. Mubarak says, I know if Arsenal doesn't win this season, Saliba will force himself to leave to another club. Mata says, I feel like Saliba is pretty committed to us for now, but he will definitely leave in 4 to 6 years from now. So Aha says, Saliba may go if we don't win anything this season. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that because I do feel like that's probably the most worrying headline that has come out over the international break, but it's not an unfamiliar headline and it's not something that we don't already know. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's not really that surprising that Real Madrid are interested in Saliba. They've always been interested in Saliba since he's been at Arsenal. We've heard like the rumblings. I think the difference between then and now is that you have, the Rudiger, out there talking in the media about Saliba and how he'd want to play with him or how he'd want him to come to Real Madrid, which is kind of how Real Madrid operate. First, their higher ups talk about the player in press conferences, then their players talk about how they'd love to play with them, and then they get in their ear and then they're there within the next 1 to 2 seasons. So, I think that's pretty much the difference, between what was going on before when we heard these rumors to now. I do think that, one domino that I don't think people talk about enough is the worst thing that could have happened to us this past summer is Lenny Yoro going to Manchester United. Not because he's going to be great at Manchester United, but because that is the player that Real Madrid were going for because they couldn't get Saliba. And so now that they missed out on him, they're going to have their eyes firmly focused on Saliba now. And you have, Tchouaméni and Mbappe spending time with Saliba, with the France national team, and they will definitely be in his ear trying to convince him to go. Saliba and Mbappe have a relationship from when they were kids, when, Mbappe's dad coached Saliba. So for me, with Saliba, it's always it's never been if he's going to end up at Real Madrid. It's always been when. It's never to me been something where I felt like he'll be with us forever. I think that out of all of our players, he's the most likely to play at the highest level. And the highest level in my mind is Real Madrid. And that's no shade to Arsenal, but it's just the truth. And most players do want to, at some stage in their life, either play for Barcelona or Real Madrid. And so, yeah, like I said, it was never and if he's going to go there, it was always when, and I think the when comes in depending. A lot of people are, obviously I see in the chat, excuse me, if we don't win this season, he's gone. Well, it doesn't work like that, guys. Like, he has a contract with us, a long-term contract with us. So us renewing him was so important for this particular reason, that if we fail to win, or we're, struggling to win, we still have a longer term contract with him than we would have had before we renewed him. And so you can't just force a move. Like, you can't just force a move. Everybody has to agree. The agents, the club he's being sold to, Arsenal have to agree. Everyone has to agree. So if Arsenal don't want to sell him, they don't have to. So I don't think it's, oh my gosh, if we don't win, he'll force a move. You're not gonna force a move. But there could be, him agitating or making it more obvious that he wants to leave. And so, I think that only Arsenal and Mikel and Edu know how close that is. But like Jacob was saying, Saliba's contract ends in 2028. And so it's not like he'll be within the next 2 years of the end of his contract tomorrow. So I do think we have longer than just this season, but it is true. You are going to have to start winning at some point. You're going to have to win at some point. Jacob says Saliba has 2 years plus one. Kamal says, I think Saliba deal is only until 2027. Like Jacobs is saying, 2 years plus one. So that doesn't mean we're going to sell him this summer. Like, I do think people are panicking just a little bit too much, and obviously Real Madrid need new central defenders. They're not blessed in that department. They have Militao, who for me is pretty average. They're playing Tchouaméni back there at times. Alaba hasn't really come back from his ACL. So they are going to be looking for a center back. That doesn't mean that 100% it's going to be Saliba, but it will be at some stage. At some stage it will be Saliba. So for me, I think let's actually look at his contract. Since there's a difference of opinion or difference of knowledge on what it is. The extension gave us probably an additional year with Saliba. That's pretty much how I thought of it. Like, if he had not signed that new deal, let's see, has no release clause. This is what it says: has no release clause, and it's a 4-year contract that will keep him at the club until 2027. So that means, basically, 2 more years. And so, I mean, you could let him go on a free, I guess, eventually, if you can't re-sign him, but you can't, because you want to sell him if you have to. But idealistically, you just want to win, so you don't have to worry about him leaving anytime soon. And I'm sure Arsenal will want to try to retain him for longer. I'm sure that, at some stage soon, they'll start to talk to him about an extension, and not just him, a couple of other players. But I think this whole idea too about, like, okay, well, we're going to lose players, because I feel like in general, I don't know what Lee Gunner has said, and I'm not going to look it up. I don't know. So I'm not going to comment on it. Sorry. We need to talk about this. But so yeah, here's the thing is, no matter what, if you're not winning trophies, your good players will leave. That's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that they're going to leave right this second, or they don't have some level of loyalty to the club that they're at. So I'm not going to press the alert button or press the alarm button. It's like, if we don't win this season, that means he's gone. He will go eventually, but I don't know if it'll be necessarily this summer. But we do have to start winning trophies to retain him. That's definitely sure. And that's for every player that we have. So yeah, I think also when you name players like RVP and, players like that, I think the main issue with RVP and Cesc and players like that left us, because we weren't competing or we weren't competitive, a lot of that was not just because we weren't winning, it was because we weren't trying to win. I think people forget that in that time period, we got to the Emirates and decided to stop spending on players. We, had too many failed projects where we had like one player that we should have gotten and then we didn't get it and it fell apart, or we were building it around brittle players, or, whatever. And it was very obvious when we got to the Emirates era that we were no longer fighting for titles. We were just trying to get into top four. And so I think that the context is quite different. Like the context around, like an example I would use is the context around winning a domestic cup is different now than it was when we were only going to win a domestic cup here and there and we weren't actually challenging. So when people are like, well, it doesn't matter that we're going to, if we win a domestic trophy, it's the same that it was before. It's not, because we're actually challenging for the title and we're competitive. In those years, we weren't competitive. We were floundering. And so I apply the same context to this, that back then it was very obvious that we weren't even attempting to try to win trophies. We were very much so in the, okay, we're just going to try to make things work because we got the Emirates Stadium. We're going to try to make it into top four. It was very evident that we were on the downslide. Right now, we're not on the downslide. We're definitely on the upward trajectory. So I think the way that players will view Arsenal and where we're going to go, they're going to view it much differently than Cesc and Van Persie. They were viewing the club in the eyes of, this club used to be massive and now it's sliding down, where the Salibas and the Sakas, I mean, I think Saka said it the other day that he sees a change in his club, that they're viewing the club as doing the necessary things to get to where they want to go. And so I think you have to apply that context. Yes, in general, players will leave if you're not winning trophies, but there is a little bit of gray area there in terms of how they view the club and how the club is approaching trying to get to the place that they want to be at. And Arsenal were definitely on the downslide when we lost all of those players. We weren't even attempting to win trophies. We weren't, so I think, again, that doesn't mean that Saliba won't eventually leave. I've always said that I feel like Saliba ends up at Real Madrid. But if Arsenal continue to be challengers and start winning, at least some trophies, I think he'll stay a little bit longer than what he would if we were sliding down, if that makes sense. So that's kind of, how I think of it. I'm not worried about it right this second, but yeah, if we don't win this season and we go into next season and we don't win too, he's gone. He'll have 1 year left on his deal, and then that will be a good opportunity for him to force it then, because then we'll have to sell him for less. And when you look at the way that Real Madrid have operated over the last couple of seasons when it comes to bigger players, they either let them get into the last year of their deal, because Real Madrid don't even pay top dollar for these players anymore. They either get them for free, or like they did with Mbappe, or they do like they did with Bellingham. They waited till we had 1 year left and made it so that Bellingham didn't want anybody else, and then negotiated a really small fee for a small fee in the context of who Bellingham is as a player, and then got him. So I think, honestly, that's how I view things will happen. I think he has 2 years left now. He'll next year we're fine, but the year that he has 1 year left, that's the year that, because he has 1 year left. I feel like it's more that than anything else, but that's kind of where I'm at. Junior says, doesn't matter who leaves or who's the club. The squad is still strong. Doesn't matter who leaves or who in the club if the squad keeps strong. And let's talk about the alternative universe. Let's talk about the alternative universe if Saliba were to go. I think that players leave, and so our whole life can't be built around these players being here. I think that there's a lot banking on, if we don't win with these players, we'll never win again. That's not true. You can always replace. Can you replace Saliba? It'd be incredibly difficult. But I do think that, if we do get to the point where we do have to sell him, you just want to make sure that you can sell him for a good fee and replace. So for me, I try to think about the idea that teams lose good players all the time. It doesn't mean it's easy to replace them, but you can't always put all your eggs in the basket of only this team is going to be able to win. So if we don't win with this team, we're fucked, you know? So yeah, I think, but you think about the way that Real Madrid have operated. They're definitely put the feelers out there. They want Saliba and they will eventually get him. That's the truth. They'll eventually get him. When they get him, that's based on, us and how we perform. But I also think they'll wait until he has 1 year left on his deal and then try to get him. So yeah. Jonathan says, no way Kroenke's let Saliba leave for free. Their profit and money driven first. AFC Whiskey says Saliba will never do Arteta that dirty to be sold for cheap. He will renew, so Arteta get a Arsenal get a mega deal, and that would suit us well too, is to get him on a new deal and then sell him for, then say, because if Real Madrid, the rumor is that they're willing to pay whatever it takes to get him, well then 150 million. We should be asking for a lot for him. So for me, I just don't. I've seen so many players leave the club, and there's always more players. So it's not the end of the world. Would it be damaging? Yeah. In the optics of the project, it's damaging. Do I think it's happening this summer? No. Do I think it'll eventually happen? Yes. So I think people need to start wrapping their head around it, especially if we don't start winning Champions League and Premier Leagues. He's gone. If we start winning those, it'll prolong it. But he's going to be at Real Madrid at some point in his career. Taylor says it's not just lose him and replace. You need to replace the same level as Saliba or closer to his level, and those players cost more. I'm just saying that doesn't mean that the whole project ends and crumbles to the ground if you have to replace Saliba. You're not going to ever. Liverpool are looking at a situation where they're going to have to try to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, and Salah in a very short period of time. But what I guarantee you is that even though they won't be able to replace those players with the same level of quality, because some of those players are one of one, they will replace with good quality players that allow them to still play at a similar level. So I think just the idea that there's not more players out there and life will cease to exist without this player, that's not the truth, but I do think that, it's one of those things where it's not a nice topic to talk about. But like I said, I've seen players leave the club before, good players leave the club before. And yes, losing, like I'll say this, losing Thierry Henry didn't mean that there was never another opportunity to win the league for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? He was a one of one. He's a very difficult player to replace. You're never replacing him. Arsenal didn't win a trophy after that, or didn't win a Premier League after that, because they didn't build a team that could win could win the league. It wasn't because we could never replace Thierry. So I'm just saying there's life after some of these players will go, and some of these players will not be here within the next 2-3 years. So yeah, don't get attached. Keenan says Saliba and Gabriel's partnership is top 10 of all time. Selling either one of them would be madness. I'm just saying it's not always that easy. It's not always that straightforward. I don't think he's going to leave tomorrow or even this coming summer. I don't think Arsenal would let it happen, because again, he can't just force a move. I think I feel like in general, football fans have a very limited way of thinking about football. They're like, well, if we don't win, he's leaving. He can't leave. He has a contract, so obviously he has things that he can do on his end to make it easier for him to go. Not sign a new deal would be one of those things. But he can't just go, so yeah, but I do think that what Real Madrid will want to do is try to get into his head enough to make sure that they could either try to get him for free or try to get him in the last year of his contract. I feel like those are the things that they'll try to do. But if Saliba ever loved us, he'll sign a new deal and make them have to pay 200 million or 150 million, and that's, to me, that's just a reality. Nuances says if we keep winning, nothing's if we keep winning, nothing, he's gone, and you can't really blame him. That's football. ISNG says we almost replaced Henry with Ronaldo. Scouting is also incredibly important to replace a player. It's not impossible to find good replacements. And I think in the because we've always failed to replace even moderately in positions in which we lose good players in. I think we believe that there's no way to replace any player, but there is. There is. There's always a way to replace players, and you're not going to get one players like Manchester City are never going to be able to replace Kevin De Bruyne. When he leaves, there'll never be another player like that. But will they fall off the edges of the earth? No, because they're going to replace with another quality player, So I think there's the gray area in between where we've always failed to replace properly. So we think losing a top player means losing everything. And that's not the truth, but I'm hoping that from my perspective, Saliba doesn't leave this summer, but the summer after that, it could get a little dicey, especially if we're not winning. Nico says, who would you get to replace Saliba if he leaves? I don't even know. That player I've probably maybe not even seen that player yet. But Diamande is doing the rounds in the chat. He's a good option. I've always liked Diamande. And so and I think Arsenal need to start looking at that now. Maybe you want to have that player already identified, just in case. I just don't think that you can go through a project of 5, 6, 7 years and keep the entire group together. There's always going to be somebody that you lose, so it can't just fall apart because you lose a player. It would hurt. It would hurt bad to lose Saliba. It really would. But we've lost players before. My gripe with Arsenal has always been we've left that hole vacant every time. You lose Thierry Henry, then you had RVP for a while. That was good. Then RVP left. We went through a long period of time without a top quality striker, so there you go. Arsenal perspective. Yes. Good afternoon, evening Gunners. Good afternoon to you as well. Kamal says, also Saliba ain't one of us. Sure, he likes Arsenal, but not like that. Players will always prioritize themselves, which is understandable because it's a short career. It's a very short career. And so, yeah, I'm very, I would say in terms of like my alarm bells, I would say my alarm bells are probably at let's say a 5 out of 10, but equally, I've already accepted the inevitable. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, all right. And the more that they talk about him, they'll be in his ear, but it's up to Arsenal to start winning trophies. I think that could really just end a lot of the conversations around some of our players leaving is they will be in a place where they can win absolutely everything. Right now, he's not in that place. So got to start winning sooner rather than later, But yeah, there's 450 of you guys in here, which is great. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes. Just to remind you guys, I am doing a live Q&A on Big Up, formerly TIFO, the platform where we do our watch-alongs for She Knows Arsenal. I'm doing that right after this. So at 7 p.m. UK time, we'll do a Q&A. Kick back, talk for an hour and some change about whatever you guys want to talk about. Because I know sometimes on these shows, because they're so topic orientated, we can't get into like other stuff that you guys want to talk about. You guys are always asking me about like, who are your favorite Arsenal players, or, who would you get in the summer window and stuff like that. And sometimes we don't really have all the time to really tease those out. So I did want to do a Q&A during this interlull because it's the perfect time to do one. But I want to do it over on Big Up because it's a better community to do it. It's a little bit smaller, more intimate. And also, I want to show you guys that don't come to the watch-alongs that it's not a scary place to be. It's like very normal. So make sure you guys join that after this. We're just going to head on over there at 7 p.m. UK time. So the link is actually pinned to the chat. You don't need a code anymore. Before you needed code Jessica to join. You don't need that anymore. You just need an email and then we'll be ready to go. So yeah, live Q&A at 7 p.m. And we could just kind of shoot the shit and talk about whatever. I haven't done one of those in probably a year, so I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, and listen, the one thing I will say is that I'm really enjoying the way that Saka is talking this season. I feel like in seasons gone past, I've been waiting for him to kind of say, we're going to win the league, or, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And he's really been in the media a lot, talking up not only his teammates like Kai Havertz and Timber, but he's been really speaking positively about this being our year. And I think your star boy, your main player, your main guy that's stepping up in the absence of our captain it's a good sign that he feels confident enough to vocalize feeling like we're going to win the league. And so, yeah, I think, you know, hopefully they feel it and they get it over the line. Just like every other season, it's a good season to try to win it, and really put everything forward to try to. And yeah, I really, I'm hoping that they really do feel it. Russell says, I have a good feeling we will win something this season. Burmy says, Starboy is now a star. Man, yeah. So, and JJ, these types of questions are the ones that we'll talk about on the live Q&A and on Big Ups. So we'll just hold that for then. Nico says, yeah, we can't keep babying Saka anymore. He's a grown man now. Sammy says it all started with his tweet that Arsenal fans deserve better. Kamal says, nah, my point is people are quick to jump on the Diamande hype, but have never seen him play. He is rated CB. I don't get it. And Russell says, I'm confident because Starboy is confident. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump on over to a potential, player, a player that I think we've actually been linked to multiple times. But Give Me Sport says that Arsenal, Tottenham, and Newcastle are all interested in Aston Villa's 23-year-old midfielder, Jacob Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey is an interesting one because he falls in the category of player that I feel like we just don't have in the squad. I think some people thought Emile was this type of player. I think, you look at like a Morgan Rogers, who's also at that club, has some of these qualities too, but he's just like a good 8, a good midfielder. He's not a DM. He's not a number 10, but he can kind of play box to box. He can receive off of the back line. I'm watching him do it now. He has a little pass on him. He can carry. He's strong. He has all those attributes of the type of midfielder that we probably are missing in the squad so far. Just a plain talented, but just a midfielder, and how I've been talking about this for a while now, that I do feel like we're very DM heavy. Most of our players are more comfortable in those deeper areas, and we've tried to, modify Odegaard's role a little bit more so that he could be more of an 8. But we don't have like those natural, athletic, physical, can kind of do all things midfielders. And Jacob Ramsey is one of those. I would say he's more rounded in his game than Morgan Rogers, but Morgan Rogers is probably a superior carrier of the ball. But Aston Villa, Unai Emery are very spoiled for choice in those positions. But I think, if he's one of those players that's looking for a move away, that could be a really clever signing for Arsenal. I don't really think we need to go get another just out and out DM. I really think we need a different profile, somebody that can do a little bit going forward, but somebody that's, it either has to be an attacking midfielder or an 8. I just feel like we're DM'd out at this point. So Arsenal, Tottenham, and Newcastle all interested, which, I'm not surprised Tottenham are interested. He seems like he reminds me of like a Tottenham-y type of player, I guess, because they always have these types of light skins on their team. No, that's what they always do. But he's a really good player that I feel like maybe is not getting as much playing time this season, because was he dealing with like a foot injury early on or something like that? But we've been talking about Jacob Ramsey to Arsenal for probably about 3 years now. But they're spoiled for choice. They'll need to sell players eventually too. And this might be a smart pickup of somebody that maybe is not necessarily a starter, but if you had, a midfield of, Odegaard, Jacob Ramsey, and Rice, you'd be okay with that. If Odegaard couldn't play and you started Jacob Ramsey in his place, and you did something a little bit different, you had more of like, a Liverpool-y type of midfield than, a 10, 8, and a 6. You could do different things because he offers you different things. He offers you different characteristics in the players that we have now. But, in like 2022, he had the most Premier League goals scored by players under 23. He was in that list with Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka and Phil Foden. And so I think he fell away a little bit maybe last season because he had a foot injury at some stage. But this is a really talented player that I remember came to the Emirates and did good things too. So, yeah, what do you guys think about Jacob Ramsey? I think this would be an interesting pickup for Arsenal. And we don't really have this profile in the team. And he has that ball carrying ability and that athleticism and stuff, but he's not somebody that can't pass the ball, if that makes sense, So what do you guys think? Boy says people really think no time at all has passed since Saliba signed his extension. Olu says very good player with character. Nico says prefer Saliba, to be honest. Taylor says Kudu stocks are starting to increase again as Liverpool has been the most team linked to him. Well, I mean, Liverpool didn't even buy this past summer, so they probably have a good amount of space and money, to buy a player with his type of release clause. He'll be playing for a Dutch manager. He's used to, he's played in the Dutch league before. I'm sure Arne Slot is very, knowledgeable of this player. So I'm not surprised that they're linked to him. We need to reinforce. We need to reinforce. I really like Kudus. You guys know I advocated for him just like a couple of days ago. So I like Kudus. Are we going to get him? Can we get a striker and Kudus? And a defender, probably, and a goalkeeper. I don't know. Because remember, Kudus has an $85 million release clause. And if you want to get a striker too, which you guys are gagging for that too, know your club. How many big signings are we going to do in one window? So I wonder. Jagoon says, if we're spending 80 million, it must be on Kudus. But nobody said Jacob Ramsey is going to cost 80 million. People are making up that figure. Boy says Liverpool will sign Diamande and then people will be crying that we didn't sign him. Omar says this is a Wenger prototype of midfield. This is Wenger's prototype of midfielder. Aha says what Jacob Ramsey's injury record like. Let's look at it. Okay, so I'm gonna say this right now because I know people we have these grandiose kind of this is what we're going to be able to do in the summer window. The new PSR rules, the fact that we're not a particularly great selling club, those things are going to come into play when we start talking about, and this is why kicking the can down the road multiple years in a row and not getting a striker, the winger, an attacking midfielder, whatever, is now we're going to hit a wall this coming summer and need all those things still and potentially not being able to really push ourselves to get it, if that makes sense, be able to really get it done. Because I'm telling you right now, a striker and a midfielder alone is going to cost you over 100 million. So keep that in mind. But right now, his I know transfer market value is not all, the end all be all, the Bible, but it's 32 million euros. I probably wouldn't pay more than 60 million for Jacob Ramsey. I don't think it'll be 80. I think people are going over the top. His contract expires in 2027. And so, yeah, let's look at his injury record. So, yeah, he had that 1 foot injury that kept him out kept him out at the back end of last season. Which I remember. So yeah, he's had 2 big injuries. I'll pull it up for you guys. Okay. So he had hamstring that kept him out for a while. Not too concerned about that. The one is big is that toe injury that happened at the back end of last season and kept him out for the whole summer, basically. So it wasn't the season, but it was still a significant amount of time. 119 days is like a quarter or a third of a year, if I'm doing the math right. So he missed 17 games for Villa. And then he had the hamstring, which only kept him out for 2 games, but 16 days. He had the foot injury. This was 51 days. This was in this past season as well, at the beginning of it. and it kept him out. So he was out almost all of last season. If you look at that, he was out almost all of last season with a foot injury and then a toe injury. So let's see. Yeah, October to November. And then, well, no, it's not the whole season. It's not the whole season. It's a lot, though. He was out for like a month and some change. And then he was in until January, and he had a small thing. And then at the end, he got a big one. But luckily, it was the summer, so he could just recover. So I don't know if you guys see like any alarms there. I see this metatarsal fracture that was looks like the end of the 2022-2023 season, or yeah, like or in the summer. When did he get that? When did you injure yourself in July? I guess they played like the under 21. So there are some biggish injuries there. And I can see why they maybe want to like cash in on him, because if you're going to put your eggs in the Onana, Tielemans, Rogers basket, then this player is probably on the edges, So you guys let me know if you think that this is like, oh shit, because it depends on what kind of toe injury it is. If you like broke your toe, that's like not a recurring type of injury. That's like that's like unlucky. Where I'm mostly get concerned is players that have consistent muscle injuries or consistent knee injuries. Those are the types of players that I'm always like, stay away. But this, like, it really depends. His foot and toe injury, this could just be bad luck. But yeah, I think he's a good player. He's 23 or something like that. He obviously is not going to be somebody that people are going to be jumping for joy. But if you want a striker, that's going to cost you a lot of money. And then you're going to get a midfielder. Yeah, we have a lot to do. And this is why I was so like disappointed at the summer window, was because I felt like we kicked the can. And I'm like, so what's the likelihood of us getting the winger, the striker, a midfielder, and a defender and a goalkeeper all in one window with the new PSR rules? So yeah. Let's see. Foxy says, amazing the way Villa do business. Such a good academy over the years, making teams overpay for fun. Liam Ritchie says, we are not cashing in on Ramsey, sold Louise in the summer as well. You'll probably still sell some players. Like everybody sells every summer. And if he's not getting as much playing time as he wants, he may leave, So it's not necessarily about, do you need to cash in a player? Sometimes an opportunity arises. If a Spurs comes to you and says, we want to give you 60 million for Jacob Ramsey, you'll probably sell him, So it's not always just like, oh, well, do we have to cash in on this player? Junior says, Jess, Chelsea has 30 players in your squad. Could Arsenal go and catch one? No. Steer clear. We don't need any more Chelsea players. In fact, right now, I'm sending Sterling right back to them and saying, this is your problem. You deal with it, and that's not to say that I hate Sterling or anything, but he hasn't done enough or anything as of yet for us to keep him. So yeah. Let's see. ISNG says he should cost 60, but to me, he's not 60 million pound midfielder. But none of this, but he's not a 60 million pound midfielder to me. The market dictates what a player is worth, not what we think, but he's not our version of a 60 million pound midfielder is based on what was a 60 million pound midfielder 10 years ago. 50 million gets you Conor Gallagher. That is like the bare minimum. 50 million gets you Conor Gallagher. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the market has inflated so much that probably somebody that would be worth 30 million is now 50 million. So you have to think about it in the context of where is the market right now? 30 million is like 50 million now. Like 30 million 10 years ago is 50 million now because of inflation. So when you think about it, in those terms, that a Conor Gallagher level midfielder costs you 50 million in this market. And in Nketiah, like, remember, people were like, well, why would anybody spend 30 million on Nketiah? Because 65 million gets you Solanke. That's the market. 30 million gets you Nketiah. 60 million gets you Solanke. What do you think a Sesko or a Duran or a Gyökeres is going to cost if 60 million gets you Solanke? in this market. So we always are thinking in terms of like, well, what you could have gotten like 10 years ago. Those, you're not getting no good player for no 30 million anymore. That is a wash. You're getting Nketiah for 30 million now from Prem to Prem team. That's what you're getting, you know? So what is a 60 million pound midfielder is somebody like a Jacob Ramsey. It is. You know, Onana, he's not like a world-class midfielder. He costs like what, 50 million or 60 million or something like that. That is the market right now. A good quality midfielder, not world-class, is 50 million at the very minimum. Very minimum. When we start talking about players that are going to change your lives, those players are 70 million, 80 million, 90 million. You see what I'm saying? The market is different now. The market has changed so much. You know, you're not going to get these players for 30 million anymore. And English tax as well, Iris is saying, because we're talking about like, you know, Jacob Ramsey, you know, you're going to add a couple of million on that for English tax, you know, and then also Prem to Prem tax. So I have to keep that in mind too. ISNG says wild take, but Gallagher is better than Ramsey though. I don't know. Boy says Solanke was never worth 60 million though. Not our fault. Spud scout like shit. I mean, but the player that they brought in, I think they spent like 45 million for Bournemouth, and that's some guy Evan Nielsen that most of us wouldn't take at Arsenal. So, 65 million for an English striker that scored 20 goals. 60 million. You know, he's not worth that. Is only based on like our idea of what 60 million should get you, but the market dictates what 60 million should get you, not our brains. A 20 million or somebody that scores 20 goals, English striker in his prime, it's going to cost you 60 million. Like that's just what it is. You know, no one was ever going to get Solanke for 30 million. Because do you guys actually think Nketiah and Solanke are the same? They're not. They're on two different planets. Omar says we have enough DMs. 34-year-old Jorginho. Jorginho's not 34, 31 injury prone Partey, and left us with Declan. Let's see. JJ says Everton. We're quoting 90 million for DCL. I remember when people were scoffing at Anthony Gordon for 45 million a year or two ago, and he was like, because they were like, we only scored like 7 goals. I'm like, the market is not what you guys think it is. It's not what it was where you could get a quality player for 20 million. Them days are done. We're right now, people are selling their academy products for 20 million, for 15 million out of the box, straight from the academy. We're in a completely different stratosphere now with the market. 15 million gets you a good academy kid now. You know, the market is just so different, you know, than it was before. So yeah, about 50, 60 million is like a Jacob Ramsey type of player. English, young, talented. So, but yeah, the DM conversation too, I just don't think we need them. I don't think we need any more. I really don't. I'm with Boy on this one. We have enough DMs. We need different profiles. We don't need anything else. You know, in the DM position, Marino can play there. Rice, you know, as a 6. MLS, we should invest in him being our Rico Lewis. We don't need any more DMs. I would get rid of both Partey and Jorginho and reinvest those wages into somebody that can play a little bit further up or give us different qualities in midfield that we don't already have. We already have enough DM. Like, I cannot do anymore. You know, most teams have one top quality one and a guy that can do a job. Only Arsenal has 3. You know what I mean? Like, do you see what I'm saying? What other top team has like 3 DMs that just play DM, by the way? Like, no. Hello. So yeah. Jay Washington says we need to offload Partey and Jorginho and bring in somebody like Ramsey. And even if it's not Ramsey, because I know Ramsey is not the type of player that people are gonna, get excited about, because if this was, first of all, if this was 2 years ago, you guys would be gagging because he had a great season and he was in those same lists as Emil and stuff, but he's not the hot topic. And so if somebody's not a hot topic, people don't want them. They can't see their quality outside of if they're not hyped. But even if it's not Ramsey, I just feel like we lack different qualities in midfield. We either have a DM or like a more attacking midfielder or a forward that we're dropping into midfield to be a number 10. We really lack 8, and we lack athleticism in midfield, the ability to run with other teams. The reason why we suffer and Manchester City suffer with teams like Villa and teams like Newcastle at times is because they have players in midfield that can just run by you, where we have guys that can't run. So no offense to Odegaard, I love you down, you can't run. So it would be nice to have a player that could also run past players, like do what like Morgan Rogers did to us. So I would love to have this type of profile. Now, idealistically, I'd like to go to West Ham and take Kudus off of their hands for 85 million, and then you have that quality in a midfielder, somebody that can play in those advanced positions, that is more of a ball carrier, somebody more of a maverick that can also play in different positions. That is like the dream. But if we can't get Kudus, which is a very likely situation that we will not, it's really likely that we will not sign Kudus, then a Jacob Ramsey could also do those things. That's all I'm saying. I don't want another DM. I don't. If we do get a DM, they need to be an up-and-coming young player that we can get for a cut price, because spending 40, 50 million on another DM that's not going to play because Declan Rice is going to be playing is stupid. And when I say he can't run, you guys know what I mean. He runs a lot, but he's not going to catch anybody. If you're by him, you're by him. That's what I mean about he can't run. Let's not get into that conversation. World Boss says, hey, Jess, hope you're all good. I would take Kudus if possible. I feel like all of us would take Kudus. Like, I feel like it would be, if you don't want Kudus, I don't know, but I don't want another DM. And if we do get a DM, it needs to be a young prospect that we can get on like a cut price kind of thing, that can that we're not going to be upset because they're on the bench. Because if you have a 60 million pound like DM that you brought in that's on the bench, or now we're still playing Declan Rice in the 8, we failed. We failed massively, so yeah. Odegaard isn't a transition midfielder. I think it's fair to say that. So that's exactly what I'm trying to say when I say that he can't run. I'm not saying he does not run. I'm saying he's not somebody that's going to be able to catch somebody. When we're really one of those types of teams that get broken down by other teams that have ball carriers in midfield, that's where our weakness is. And it will continue to be a weakness if we can't maybe have somebody else in there that can not only do that to our opposition, but maybe stop a little bit of that too. Yemi says we had that ability in ESR. ESR didn't score a goal in 2 years. It's a really good sale for us. He broke down every 5 seconds. ESR was a perfect sale. And we didn't have that because Emil, as much as people try to make him out to be this athletic, physical prospect, when I say like a ball carrier that is a good transition threat, I'm talking of more like the Jacob Ramseys and the Morgan Rogers, the people that are actually athletic and big and strong. Emil is not that, so what he can do is he's nice on the ball and has nice close feet. He's somebody that can do nice close tricks and he holds on to the ball well, but he's not good on transition. He's not strong. He's not athletic. And so, yeah, let's not pretend like Jacob Ramsey and Morgan Rogers and Emil are in the same categories. They're not. I wish Emil all the success in the future, but let's not rewrite history on him. Let's not. One of his main flaws was that he couldn't play the 8 because he's not somebody that you can trust in the center circle in duels, basically. So, good player though. So yeah. And I know everybody's like, well, I would rather have Rogers. It's like, think beyond the nose. Like, Rogers is great, but before Rogers, it was Ramsey. Ramsey was the guy before Rogers. Rogers is the hot one now. He's the hot one now. He's the one that everybody wants because he's the one that's actually playing right now. Who is not playing? Ramsey. He's good too. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that child. That guy is that he's good too. Because I remember a couple of years ago, people were like, "We gotta get Jacob Ramsey. We gotta get Jacob Ramsey." He's just not the guy that he's not playing right now. So yeah. Jordan says Ramsey isn't a powerhouse. He's just fast. I prefer a powerhouse in midfield. I mean, who's a powerhouse? Who's the powerhouse in midfield you're gonna get? Who is the powerhouse? I don't understand. So yeah, but Jacob Ramsey, he's not hyped enough right now. But a couple of years ago, I remember the chat was saying we got to get Jacob Ramsey. So there's nothing wrong with a player not being the hot topic of the moment, Let's see. My friend just sent me a message. It's funny. About Sesko. So yeah, last but not least, just really quickly, Arsenal are linked with Leroy Sané again. I just feel he's a free transfer. That's the one thing I will say. Is that when you think about the laundry list of things that we potentially need to do this summer, you have striker, you have winger, and then you have like midfield. Whether you want a DM or an 8 or a 10, that's your thing. But we need one midfielder, and then we're gonna get a defender. Like what without a shadow of a doubt is we're gonna get that backup goalkeeper because we're not gonna keep Neto, and we're gonna get a defender. So that's already 2 positions that you can already say are gonna get done. So then you have midfield, winger, and striker, all still needing to be looked at. And so one of those are either gonna go unfilled, they're gonna go unfilled, or you can look for something that's not as obvious, and do something smart. Is Zane on a free smart? You tell me. I don't know. We have Sterling now. Is Sane better than Sterling? I don't know. But I would say that on the list of things that we need to do that are outside of goalkeeper and defender, the most important things are going to be midfield and striker. I feel. Not because Havertz is not doing a good job. Don't want to go back into this. Love Havertz down. Think he's doing amazing. But we need to replace Jesus. So Jesus sold, new striker comes in is definitely the priority. And then the second priority is whether we lose one or both of Jorginho and Partey, we need to bring in another midfielder. So those end up being priority over the winger, even though we should have already had the winger. We've been trying to do this winger position since we tried to get Rafinha. It's been like 3 years, and so it's like it's getting kicked down the road. Maybe the only way to do it is a free transfer. But you guys let me know. What would you rather do? Like right now, gun to your head, bring in Zane at the end of the season on a free, or keep Sterling? Because I think both of those options are probably on the table for Arsenal. I think Sterling would probably want to stay at Arsenal. Has he earned permanent? No, not yet. But gun to your head right this second, if you had to choose between Zane on a free or freaking Sterling, what would you choose? Because we're not going to address everything in one window. Keep that in your mind. So yeah. Jay Washington says, but the wages have to come way down if we sign him. Yemi says, I worry that Ramsey's form might have dropped since he hasn't been playing lately. That's a risk. He hasn't been playing because he's been injured. Zitch says 20 million backup goalkeeper incoming. Yo-Yo says no former Pep players move on from his shadow. BroPro says, how you guys watching Sterling and moan but still want Zane? I think Sterling has actually done okay. Like I actually was one of the people that said that I felt like people were harsh on him for the Southampton game. They lumped him in with Jesus, and he was good. He was good, so but would I be dying to give Chelsea money for him right now? No. But am I dying to bring in Zane? No. Boy says Nico Williams still has a 50 million release clause. He's Barca bound. Like, there's just no way we're getting him. Foxy says those Sané wages over 300,000 a week. Imagine what he demands on a free. Yikes. Lionide says, how's your issues with Martinelli going? I think he's doing okay. The one thing I will say about Martinelli is fully back is he's not. So, yeah, scoring goals against Leicester and Southampton is a given for a player at Arsenal. The one game where I felt as though, this would have been a good game to really say you're back is if he had scored against PSG, where he fluffed his lines twice. So, yeah, I don't have any sort of agenda against Martinelli, but the "see, I told you so." Like, my whole thing was I said that I felt like things would get better once Marino and Calafiori were in there with him. But do I still feel like we could upgrade on Martinelli? Yes, I do. I still feel that way. So hope that helps. Junior says Sterling is not bad at all, but I'm not sure about your future at Arsenal. Yo-Yo says we don't need useful words. We need game changers. Useful forwards. We need game changers. Lionide says the next window is about getting rid of surplus. Wake up. I mean, we kind of did that in this past window. Every window can't really be about getting rid of surplus. There has to be a window where we go get the pieces that we've been lacking. So, this past window, we got rid of so many players, and we didn't bring that many in. We got a goalkeeper on loan, we got Calafiori, we got Marino, and we got Sterling on a loan as well. So there has to be a window where we go and get those final pieces. So you can do two things at once, by the way. You can get rid of players in the same window that you bring players in. So yeah, not really buying that. But I know that some people's like, well, I don't think we're going to get what we need to get done. So I'm going to say that this window is about getting rid of players. This past window was about getting rid of players. When are we going to bring them in? So yeah, but listen, we're going to go ahead and get out of here, but the party doesn't stop. We are going to do a live Q&A right now. It's 7 p.m. UK time on Big Up. I told you guys that I wanted to do a live Q&A with you guys. I haven't done one in years or probably like a year, but it feels like years, which is pretty much how I used to do my shows all the time. I would just turn on the thing and then and we would just talk for like 2 hours. And so I kind of want to bring that back, but I want to do it on the Big Up platform, which is formerly TIFO, where we do our watch alongs. It's a great platform. You can actually come on stage with me if you guys want to. You guys can do threads and talk to each other. It's really nice. And so I really want you guys to join me there. If you guys still want to talk, but it's not so topic driven, you guys can ask me questions and you could just, we could just shoot the shit for a little bit. So it's going to be about an hour and a half, I think, is what I have plotted for this live live Q&A. And all you have to do is use your email to sign in. You don't need a code anymore. But yeah, if you guys want to continue chit-chatting, there's 500 or 600 of you guys in here. Pop on over to Big Up now. I put the link in the chat a couple of times too, and it's pinned. And I'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. Like and subscribe on your way out. And I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Bye, guys.